So I find myself wondering what it is that prevents people like you from picking up the phone and talking to someone like me. And some of that is fear, some of that is shame. You know, I mean, owning up to being worried about a child and wondering if I'm going to judge you and your parenting. Owning up to having stayed with someone when you just know that you should have left years ago. These are all painful things to do. It takes great courage, actually, to come in and sit with someone like me, and I want to make that as easy as possible. But how people kind of endorse that and cover up that shame and that fear is through a process of denial. And denial is about taking the fact and turning it into something else. Turn it into something else that you can then kind of burn away so you don't feel that feeling anymore. So, for example, it is a process of minimizing. So when I hear someone saying just this, just that, just, I don't know, I just felt a bit tired, it was just the one, I was just a bit late, I'm hearing a process of minimizing. So people will minimize their own problems and at the same time feel unheard and overlooked. And it's a terribly lonely place to be. And so what I want to say is that good therapy team, a clinical team such as the one that I run at Charter, we work with families, we work with couples, we work with individuals who suffer from a huge range of problems, from stress, anxiety, depression, people who've suffered trauma, and people who are in patterns of addictive behaviour. And when we're talking to these people, and indeed when I'm talking at schools to parents who are worried about their children, once they find that they're in a safe place and they can talk, oh, you know, the floodgates open and all the information and the fear and the shame comes out, and we can hold that without judgment. We're going to hold that so that you can hear your voice, you can hear your own experience in a safe and contained way, and then you can start to pick through what is true, what's been amplified by your fear. Really, were you such a bad parent, or were you just ill-equipped to deal with that very stressful moment? And can you be helped, actually, simply to learn from that experience and to move back out into your family and feel that you're better equipped to do better? Nobody's perfect, we know that. And people feel a great deal of shame today about perhaps not being perfect and, you know, keeping up the face of being as good as somebody else. So that denial process, that process of minimizing, universalizing, everybody does it, generalizing, it wasn't that bad, exaggerating. I mean, for example, I know many years ago, I knew someone and they said that what they would do is if they were going somewhere and let's say they tripped over, and they tripped over in the street and fell over and grazed their knee, the first thing they do is sort of look around and see if anybody had seen them, because they didn't want to be seen to trip over. And then they would go on, and in this instance they had tripped over in the street, and then they went into work and they caused a tear in their trousers. And this particular person went in and sort of brushed it off, and somebody said, you know, you okay, you got a tear in the trousers? And he said, no, it's okay, nothing happened. But when we spoke about it, he said that he felt good, actually, that somebody had noticed that he'd got this rip in the knee of his trousers, and that he was able to say, no, it was nothing. And this woman then fussed over him and said, no, are you sure you've got a tear? You know, did you fall over? Are you okay? And he said, no, don't worry about it. You know, it was nothing, I didn't fall over. But actually, he'd got some kind of need met by minimizing what had happened to him and kind of attracting this care. And equally, people can come in and say, oh my God, I just fell over, I nearly fell into the road, and they will get the attention that way. But the ability to simply fall over, get up, own it for exactly what it is, in this individual who was somebody that I knew who was in recovery from addiction, really struggled to say it actually how it was and receive attention for exactly what had happened and not turn it into something else. Now that may seem like a really petty example, it may seem really incidental, but that's kind of like the point. If you have that process of not really being honest and not really being seen for what you do and who you are in every minute of every day, then at the end of the day, or a little bit later on, the consequences are you're not going to feel seen, you're not going to feel known, you're going to be known as the person who doesn't care, for example, when they hurt, all the while hiding their hurt. And that's what I look at as a kind of fractured sense of self. So if you look at it, this is how I feel and this is how I appear. And when we're born, those two are together. I feel something, I cry. It's a very congruent process. But through life, if I feel shame about how I feel or I want to hide how I feel, I create a part of myself that presents that differently. And we call that a fractured sense of self. And for a while, that works, but the gap gets wider. Less and less do I present how I feel honestly in the moment in the world. And then I go out into the world and this part of me makes friends, gets a job, is very sociable, whatever, but it isn't actually who I feel that I am. And what I know about the condition of addiction, for example, is that it is in this gap that people self-medicate. It is in that painful, anxiety-driven, excruciating sense that even though this is who I am and this is who people know, it's not how I feel. So I deny how I feel and the reality of how I feel, and I seek to get attention for a version of that, but it never reaches and really satisfies or soothes how I feel. So I end up feeling unknown, unseen and isolated. So out here, somebody might say that you're very funny or you might be very popular. And inside, you might feel very lonely and you might start to think, why do I feel so lonely? Why do I feel? I mean, I'm surrounded by friends. What is wrong with me that I can't absorb the friendship and the love and the care and everything that's around me? Well, maybe it is that. You've forgotten how to represent how you feel in the real world. And maybe you've picked up something that self-medicates that gap. So the work that I would do with you, if that were the case, would be to remove some of the things that you self-medicate with and bring together the process, do the process that brings together how I feel, how you feel, with how you look, so that you have a more truthful representation of who you are in your life.